This asshole gave an interview with Tucker Carlson, who Tucker Carlson used to be the guy in the bow tie. Tucker Carlson was like the old school kind of country club Republican, and then he became, I don't know what, he's like the world's oldest groyper, because he started having on Holocaust deniers. He started to be I'm just asking questions guy, questions like, who do you think was the good guys in World War II? You know, really stupid questions, but he's just asking questions. So now we had on this guy, this Fuentes guy, and never challenged him. Then the American Heritage Foundation got involved. They're the people behind, I think, the Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation. They're a very big Republican group. And the head of the Heritage Foundation came out and he attacked the people who were attacking Tucker Carlson for giving him this friendly interview. This guy, Kevin Roberts, head of the Heritage Foundation, he said, well, we shouldn't attack Carl Carlson. When we disagree with a person's thoughts and opinions, we challenge those ideas in debate. Except Kevin Roberts, whoever the fuck you are, that's not what Tucker Carlson did. He didn't challenge him. So now there's this war in the Republican Party. And I want to ask two questions about that, and then about which party seems to be having a bigger problem with anti-Semitism, because it seems like both parties now have an anti-Semitic wing. Is that a wrong assessment?
No, that's a... Oh my God, Bill Maher is such a fucking... Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So today we have a new format for you guys. I think going forward each Saturday we're going to do this thing called the Weekly Wrap, which I go over several topics that were pretty relevant during the week. It'll be a little bit of a longer format. I'm thinking probably closer to an hour, at least 45 minutes. And, we'll see if you guys like it or not. Let's try it out. So as you just heard, I want to talk about what Bill Maher had to say about Tucker Carlson. So Bill Maher is one of those liberals who gets off on the fact that Fox News will cover him occasionally because Maher will critique blue-haired retard college liberals, okay? And because he does that, Fox News will be like, even the left thinks that woke is gay, and it'll be like Bill Maher, calling some college student anti-Semitic because she has a pro-Palestinian flag on her backpack. It's like, okay, that's what anti-Semitism is these days, is being pro-Palestine, I guess. According to Bill Maher, it is. But Bill Maher is one of these atheists who is also very heavily Zionist. Isn't it weird how many atheists are also Zionists? You got Bill Maher, you got Sam Harris, you got the Weinstein brothers. It's what's up with this? Why are so many atheists also Zionists? You would think if you were an atheist, you'd be very much against Zionism. The whole point of Zionism is to have a Jewish state, basically like an ethno-state, like a religious ethno-state. I feel like if you're an atheist, you should be against that, particularly if you're on the left, like Sam Harris, like Bill Maher. Because remember, people like Bill Maher, he did a whole documentary exposing the problems with religion. The movie was called Religulous. It's actually a pretty good movie. It's one of the reasons why I grew up more or less an atheist, or certainly not someone who actively believes in God. And the whole point about religion is, in the movie he makes, is that it makes us tribal, and it ends up leading to war and conflict, and that the benefits of religion don't outweigh the negatives. But then it's you don't think the reason why you have so much chaos in the Middle East is because of the religious conflict between Judaism and Islam? I mean, the whole reason Israel does these illegal settlements, is trying to create a greater Israel, is at least in part because of religion. They think all this land, including land that's occupied by Palestinians, Arabs, they think it's owed to them by God. Just listen to what Ben Gvir has to say, or Smotrich, people in Bibi Netanyahu's cabinet. They believe all this land, Gaza, the West Bank, they believe it belongs to them because God said it should be theirs, or, some gay shit like that. And it's You're okay with that, Bill Maher? You're okay with that, Sam Harris? You're supposed to be like the enlightened, liberal, atheist people, but you're totally okay with Israel doing illegal settlements, even though they're certainly doing them in part for religious reasons. It's like, why? Because, like, Israel's under attack because of terrorism? It's like, yeah, well, maybe if Israel wasn't doing illegal settlements, it wasn't keeping Gaza in an open-air prison, maybe there wouldn't be so much anti-Israel sentiment in the Middle East. You ever think about that, Bill Maher? You fucking idiot. I mean, it's like, again, you're like this atheist, enlightened liberal against all religion, against superstition, but you love Israel? Like, what? It doesn't really make sense. It's like a bisexual person. It's like someone who says they're bisexual, but then they only like date dudes. It's like, I mean, it's like that doesn't quite make sense. That doesn't really work. You're mislabeling yourself at that point. It's like, I don't know how you could really call yourself like an atheist or like an enlightened liberal or like an enlightened atheist, but then like love Israel. Like that doesn't really track. I don't know. And the other thing about Bill Maher, which is so infuriating, is he's also talked about how much he loves free speech. I'm a free speech bro, guys. I just want to talk to people. I'll talk to the president. I'll talk to the president. I'll tell him, Mr. President, I think you should have kept in the Iran deal. And you know what? The president was cool about it. You know what, guys? I smoke pot. I have sex. That's Bill Maher. Okay. This little smug retard. Always talking about how much he loves free speech, but then, as you just heard, he attacks Tucker Carlson for having a conversation with someone. Like, that's all Bill Maher does. He has his own podcast where he just talks to people, including some controversial people. I mean, Bill Maher had, like, Armie Hammer on, who, like, confessed that he's, like, a cannibal or something. I think Armie to be fair to Armie Hammer, I think that he wasn't being serious in those comments, but, he said it. Those comments exist, and he clearly mistreated women. And Bill Maher had him on his podcast. All Tucker had was have Nick Fuentes, and contrary to what Bill Maher says in that clip I played, Tucker did push back against Fuentes. Again, this is just something people are saying that's just not true. Tucker did push back. He made it very clear that bigotry is evil, that blood guilt is wrong, and because Tucker is a Christian, he's against all forms of bigotry. Now, he did it in a very eloquent way. He didn't, harass Fuentes and call him a Nazi, and what good would have that done? That would have just made Fuentes defensive, and it just would have made his fans dismissive. Tucker actually got Fuentes to concede to a lot of points, including that all forms of bigotry, including anti-Semitism, is bad. And I'm supposed to be mad at Tucker Carlson for doing that? It's like, these people are crazy. And then he, goes after the Heritage Foundation. I'm sorry. The fact that he had the head of the Heritage Foundation had to recant his defense of Tucker, and the fact that, these pro-Israel groups want to, force all these Heritage Foundation interns to go to Shabbat dinners. Imagine that. You must go to Shabbat. You must go to Shabbat. It's I don't want to go to Shabbat. I think I'm good. I'm not anti-Semitic. Okay. I don't need to go to Shabbat. Okay. I want to have my pepperoni pizza on a Friday night, bro. I like bacon. You must support Israel. You must bomb Iran. Go to Shabbat. It's I don't want to go to Shabbat. That's not happening. I mean, it's just insane. Again, this atheist guy that's never been married, this pothead, loves Israel, and because of that, he's going after. And it's both parties have a problem with anti-Semitism. It's why? The left has a problem with anti-Semitism because they're against Israel committing a genocide? It's what? I'll be honest, there is more actual anti-Semitism on the right. There's no question about that. I mean, Fuentes is more or less an anti-Semite. There's no question about that. And then he criticized Tucker Carlson for being an old school, that he used to be a country club conservative and that he's not anymore. It's good. That's a good thing. Country club conservatism is awful. It's lame. We shouldn't want that. We don't want country club conservatism. That was George W. Bush. That was the Iraq War. That was the financial meltdown in '08. He's like, oh, Tucker Carlson, he just talks about conspiracy theories and has on Holocaust. Like, I'm sorry, Bill. I thought you, of all people, understood that a lot of these quote unquote conspiracy theories were actually true. Wasn't that your whole thing? I mean, you were critical of the lockdowns. You were critical of COVID, Bill Maher. A lot of people called that type of stuff conspiracy theories. But Tucker's not allowed to do the same thing. It's also like, what Holocaust deniers has Tucker Carlson had on? Fuentes, you could say. Who else? Daryl Cooper. He's not a Holocaust denier. People say, oh, Daryl Cooper, he's a Holocaust denier. It's like, no, he's not. He's just a critic of Churchill. Like in the neocon foreign policy establishment, like being critical of like Winston Churchill's like the same thing of being like a 10 times serial killer. It's like, okay. It's like Winston Churchill, whatever, but like there's like you just can't. It's like he's like Israel. It's like the same thing. You can't criticize either one of them without being called like a Nazi. It's like whatever, but like I don't know how many Holocaust deniers Tucker Carlson has really had on, and Tucker Carlson's not a Holocaust denier. So like, who gives a shit who he talks to? Again, Bill Maher, you've talked to some weird people on your show. Tucker can't do the same thing. I mean, hey, you had Barack Obama on your show, Bill Maher. He's responsible for deaths of innocent American civilians due to some of his drone strikes. That's worse than anything that Nick Fuentes has done. Should we condemn you, Bill Maher? You're a Zionist. You're an atheist Zionist, whatever, again, how much that makes sense. You supported a genocide. Should that make you off limits, Bill Maher? Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson didn't support a genocide. You supported the genocide, Bill Maher, in Gaza. Should that make you off limits? I mean, I don't think people really understand, these Zionists really understand, like, how much, like, Israel support is just, like, a no-go anymore. It's like, you're going to condemn people for, like, jokes, inappropriate jokes they made when you literally supported a genocide? It's like, spare me the, like, oh, Tucker Carlson having all these conspiracy theories. Like, you literally supported the genocide. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, it's like unbelievable that it's like, it's okay to support genocide, but you can't have a conversation with Nick Fuentes. All Tucker Carlson has been doing the last several years is trying to prevent the United States from making the same mistake it did in Iraq. And the reason Tucker cares so much about it is he did support the Iraq War at the time, and he regrets it. That's all Tucker Carlson is doing. But instead, you have retards like Bill Maher being, oh, he didn't push back against Nick Fuentes. He's a conspiracy theorist. It's like, he did push back. You didn't watch the interview, asshole. He very eloquently, more eloquent than how I could do it, obviously, explained why bigotry is bad, and the fact if you are a Christian, you can't be a bigot. You have, because all humans are made by God, they're all equal then. It was honestly a beautiful way of putting it. And I don't know if it had an impact on Fuentes or not, but like, he did push back. He just didn't yell Nazi for like the whole hour or 2 hours, however long the interview between him and Fuentes was. And again, as I said about like Ben Shapiro yesterday, this is just because Tucker and Fuentes are, they're big critics of Israel. Now, look, I do think it's fair to say that Fuentes is a critic of Israel, at least in part, because I do think he holds bigotry towards Jews. And I think Tucker, again, to his credit, kind of illustrated that by pointing out the fact that there are many Jews in the United States that don't support what Israel has been doing in Gaza and is critical of Israel in general. And Fuentes sort of acknowledged it, but, he kind of had a hard time with it. That was good to see. It's good that we're able to, see a distinction between being critical of Israel because of what it does, which is the Camp I am in, versus the people who are critical of Israel because of what it is, a Jewish state. That is like Nick Fuentes, those types of people, and those types of people are wrong. I don't dislike Israel because it's a Jewish state. I don't care. I want Israel to be successful. Part of the reason I was so against what it was doing in Gaza is because it's going to hurt Israel's reputation for decades now. They likely committed a genocide. That's just not going to go away in the international community. Just because Trump got a ceasefire and they stopped. There are people in the Israeli government who want to go back into Gaza already. So, just the whole. I don't even like talking about Israel, believe it or not. It's like I only do it because it's just relevant in the conversation, and a lot of I just see so many people on the right who are against identity politics and against calling people bigots if you disagree with them, but then they do it with Israel. It's like you don't just get to do that because it's Israel. What, it's okay to make offensive jokes or make offensive statements against blacks or Hispanics or women, but if you do it against Jews, that's where you draw the line. The conservative movement, like I don't. It's like what? You got to be consistent. It's like if a guy cheats on his girlfriend but says it's okay because he cheated on her with a guy. It's like that doesn't really make it better. That doesn't really change it. It's the same principle. I would never do that, by the way. To anyone listening, I would never cheat on my girlfriend with a guy, of course. Never do it. I have never done that, and I never would do it. I promise. Don't ask Natalie about it, but would never do that. But so it's like the principle is we're against identity politics and we're against smearing people that we disagree with by calling them names. But when it comes to Israel, conservatives will do it. And people see the contradiction, and that's why there's so much hostility towards Israel. Plus, like I said, you have like these like anti-Semitism groups trying to force like Heritage Foundation like staffers to like go to Shabbat dinners, bro. It's like I think I'd rather kill myself than have to go to Shabbat dinner on a Friday. Oh my god. Oh my god, that would just terrible. Though the Jewish people do have good food, so just no like bacon. So it's like kind of a missed opportunity. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about Bill Maher. He's a faker. Again, I don't know how you can be like this enlightened atheist, but also be a Zionist. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go to the next topic. So last Tuesday did not go well for the Republicans, okay? It was a bit of a disaster. I had done my predictions on the website. Still there. You can check it out to see how well I did. therightwingpopulist.com. And I underestimated the Democrats in pretty much every race except for like California. New York City, I kind of overestimated the margin Mamdani would win by, but I got his vote share wrong. I thought it'd be under 50%. He got over 50%. And it was a wipeout. States, I thought New Jersey was going to be close. It wasn't. I thought the Democrat won by 3. She won by like over 13. In Virginia, which I didn't think would be that close at all, I thought the Democrat would win by 7. She won by like over 16. So it was not a good night. And there was other races too, some races in Georgia and in Pennsylvania where Democrats won some like state races, or some district races that Democrats hadn't won in like over 50 years. There were like precincts and counties, particularly like in New Jersey, that had like the big Hispanic populations that had shifted heavily towards Trump in 24. Well, they shifted dramatically back towards the Democrats on Tuesday night. That's not a good sign. And the question is like, why? Now, one caveat, it should be noted that some of the shifts we saw back in 2021 in Virginia and New Jersey were actually more than what we saw last night, meaning that we actually saw a bigger shift in Virginia and New Jersey towards Republicans in 21 than we saw a shift towards Democrats we saw this past Tuesday. And the Republicans did end up winning the midterm the next year, but it was a much more disappointing margin than people thought. So just because Democrats did really well on Tuesday does not necessarily mean they're in for like an amazing night an amazing, midterm in 26. But there were a lot of red flags. If you look at working class communities in some of these counties, they either didn't show up or they voted for the Democrat. As I mentioned, in a lot of Hispanic heavy counties, they either didn't show up or a lot of them voted for the Democrat. I mean, in Georgia, for example, you had Georgia Public Service Commission maps where in like seats 2 and 3, they were seats that Republicans had won by 2. They shifted over 27 points to the Democrats. The Democrats ended up winning those seats by 25 and 26 points, respectively. That's nearly a 30-point shift. And you saw like shifts like that everywhere. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, you saw a big shift towards the Democrat where you unseated a Republican there who had represented that area for years. I mean, this was like a massive blue wave that we hadn't seen since like 2006 when Democrats destroyed Republicans in the 2006 midterms. And the question is like, why did this happen? Like, what explains the dramatic shift towards the Democrats? Well, one, Trump is going around saying that inflation's been solved and that we're in the golden age of America. The golden age of America. Terrific. Tremendous. Amazing. It's like, no, we're not, Donald. I know you think you're the greatest person to ever walk the earth, but just because you're the president now doesn't mean everything's like amazing. The economy is pretty weak right now, actually. The job numbers are not good. People are not hiring. There's more people looking for work than there are jobs currently available. The inflation rate is the same that you got into office. Like, it's the same. It hasn't gone down. Even if it had gone down, it's like we're talking about the rate. It's like if you're gaining fat by 3% each year, and then the next year you only gain it by 2%, it's like, well, yeah, the number went down, but you're still gaining weight. That's just you only gain 2% instead of 3%. You're still gaining weight. Same thing with inflation. And it's the same rate. It was about 3% when he got into office, and it's 3% right now, effectively. Are there certain areas where inflation has gone down? Yes. Energy costs in some areas have gone down. Food prices like eggs have gone down. But overall inflation is about the same. And people are blaming the tariffs, but honestly, the fact that inflation's about the same that it was going to office kind of shows tariffs are not having that big of an impact on inflation. But honestly, if you're going to use tariffs as a way just to like do de facto sanctions instead of a way to like sort of reinvigorate industrial policy, then it's like, what is the point of paying slightly larger prices, which does usually happen with tariffs? The cost will, at least to some degree, get passed on to the consumer. It's like, well, if we're not using this for industrial policy, but we're just using it as a way to like put sanctions on India because they buy Russian oil, it's like what's the point? I don't want to pay higher prices if that's why we're using tariffs for. I'm willing to pay slightly higher prices if we're trying to reinvigorate our industrial base. But if we're just doing it like for like a neocon end of like being mean towards Russia, it's like, no, that's gay and retarded. It's like I'm not down for that. It's like, what? I thought the whole point of tariffs was to like help like the working man in like Ohio or Pennsylvania or like Michigan, not to like be mean to Vladimir Putin. I didn't sign up for that. That might be a reason why the tariffs are a little bit in doubt. We might talk about that later regarding SCOTUS. But, Trump is going around saying that there's not an issue with prices. It's like, but there is. The economy is like he says we have the greatest economy in the world. It's like, no, we don't, Donald. No, we don't, Mr. President. You sound like Joe Biden. You sound like a more coherent Joe Biden. Joe Biden spent most of his administration saying, the economy's good, the economy's great. He could barely talk, but he would try to communicate that, the economy was doing well, and people didn't buy that because inflation was a problem. The job market has been weak ever since COVID. And that's why they put Trump back in office, because they wanted him to bring back his economy from his first term. Well, let's be honest, Trump hasn't done that yet. I mean, he brags about how high the stock market is, but it's like, first off, the vast majority of people either don't have any investment in the stock market or have very little. Okay. So just because the stock market is up doesn't mean people on Main Street are necessarily doing well. And the stock market's just being propped off by like this AI bubble. Once that bubble bursts, which it's likely to happen, the stock market's going to fucking crash. And then Trump's going to have nothing to brag about economically. It's like that. You can't put all your eggs in the fucking stock market, dude. It's like ridiculous. And again, he's just starting to sound like Joe Biden. And it's not just that. Let's go back to the beginning of his second term. And let's see where things started to like fall apart a little bit. So Trump gets back into office, and the first thing he does is he pardons all the January 6 people. Great. That sent like a great signal that Trump was going to keep his promises, that he had no fear of going up against the deep state, because one of the things the deep state loved doing more than anything over the last 4 years was putting all these Trump supporters in jail for like misdemeanors, because like, oh, they like stepped foot on the grassy area of the Capitol, which like counts as trespassing. In all fairness, some people did worse things than that, let's be honest. There were some people who beat up cops, which I do not support, although it is a little ironic coming from like the defund the police crowd that they were so offended that, Trump supporters, a few of them, taxing police officers. It's like, I thought you guys were the BLM crowd. But, anyway, let's not even get into that. But, he declassifies files regarding JFK, MLK. He like berates Zelensky in the White House in the first 2 months. It makes it clear he's going to end the Ukraine war. He got a ceasefire done originally with Israel and Hamas back when he first got into office, the second time, but back in January. He did the tariffs, and talking about how we were going to like revitalize our industrial base. Like the first 2-3 months of the administration, it looked like Trump was really going to bring the change that he had campaigned on. And his approval rating was quite high at that time. But then the Epstein files come about, and then, it all goes to shit. Trump starts saying, there's nothing in the Epstein files. I didn't do anything. I like them older, not younger. It's a hoax. The Epstein files are a hoax. They don't exist. And if they do exist, the Democrats manipulated them. It's like, okay. That doesn't sound like a guilty person. And, Trump starts saying there's no such thing as the Epstein files. Pam Bondi, even though she had said the Epstein files were on her desk, starts saying they don't exist either. And people are like, what? What the fuck? I personally don't even really didn't care, and I still don't really care about the Epstein files that much. But the Trump administration, they handled it horribly. And that's when you started to see like these younger, more minority swing voters that had shifted towards Trump start to shift away against him in the approval ratings. It was really the Epstein files. And then he bombed Iran, which made those people question him even more. And then he starts using like tariffs as a way to like go after Russia. He's unable to end the Russia-Ukraine war, even though he had promised to end it like before he was even officially inaugurated. He still hasn't gotten that done. He starts bragging about how the economy's great, even though it's not. He starts threatening to invade Venezuela to go after Maduro for like fentanyl, even though it's not clear at all Venezuela is a big distributor of fentanyl at all. It's not clear. Maybe cocaine, but I haven't seen much evidence that they're a big fentanyl distributor, but maybe. And it's like we signed up for America first, but it just looks like Trump is way more focused on like foreign policy. It makes him seem like a neocon, let's be honest. I mean, bombing Iran just for the benefit of Israel was so fucking stupid. Like, it was not beneficial toward, like, what? Like, what? Iran's gonna, like, fucking bomb Nebraska? It's like, I don't think so. That's not gonna happen. The only reason Iran's threatening to get a nuclear weapon is because that's the only way they can be assured the U.S. won't try to do regime change in Iran. That's why regime change can't happen in North Korea, is because Kim Jong-un has all those nuclear weapons. I mean, the whole thing, it's just absurd. So, a lot of young people that historically have been Democrat-leaning demographics, including even young men, they shifted towards Trump. It's how he won the election, including the popular vote. But they've all shifted away because they think Trump was bullshitting about being America first. Because of, how he's handled foreign policy, and the fact that he keeps lying and saying that prices are down and the economy is amazing. The economy isn't amazing. You can't gaslight the public. Joe Biden found that out. Okay? The public thinks the economy, especially regarding prices, is weak and not good enough. And you can't just say, and Trump's a great marketer, and he's coherent in a way that Biden was, so maybe he can be more effective. But I'm sorry, you can be the greatest salesman in the world, but at the end of the day, if your pocketbook is struggling, just because Trump lies in a more charismatic way than Biden, people aren't going to buy it, dude. So, but what can the Trump administration do to fix some of this? Well, he needs to focus on getting prices down in areas that he has control. Getting down energy costs, which means stop putting tariffs on oil, including Russian oil. Ending the Russia-Ukraine war by simply telling Ukraine we're going to end the faucet, we're going to turn off the faucet, no more money for you guys. That'll end the war. He had a really good post on Truth Social yesterday talking about he's going to go after some of these big corporations regarding beef because beef prices are out of control, and Trump was alleging that there may be some sort of criminal conspiracy to keep beef prices artificially high. That's great to see. But the key for Republicans to do well in the midterms next year is prices. That's what the Democrats ran on. That's how Mamdani won in New York City. His primary message was that prices are too high. The rent is too high. The rent is too damn high. That's how Mamdani won. He didn't really talk about Israel. The people who made it about Israel were all like the Israel fanatics, the Israel first people. Mamdani didn't really talk about that. He talked about getting costs down in New York City. That's how in New Jersey the Democrat won. That's how in that's how in Virginia the Democrat won. It was a lot about just prices being too high. So the goal that the Trump administration needs to focus on domestic policy, forget foreign policy. To the extent we should be engaged in foreign policy, it should be us disengaging from foreign policy, if that makes any sense. It means ending all these wars. Do not go into Venezuela. Stop funding the Ukraine war. And don't go into Nigeria with troops. Trump threatened to do that because I guess Christians are being targeted, and that's horrible. I don't support that, of course. But we shouldn't be bringing in troops into Nigeria. Again, that's not America first. That's like trying to run the world. And I understand the United States does do that to some degree. Excuse me. But that's not what Trump ran on. Trump ran on America first. That's why he won. That's why he was so attractive to young people this past election, including minority voters. I mean, if the current status quo continues, Texas is doing this redistricting. It's not going to matter because some of those Hispanic-heavy counties that Trump won, they're going to vote Democrat. So, and given the fact that California passed Prop 50 that gives them redistricting, you're not going to be able to gerrymander your way into a victory next year, Republicans. If prices stay the same or continue to increase, you're cooked. So that's what the Trump administration needs to focus on. And we'll see what happens. Trump's pretty good when his back's against the wall and correcting. And I do think he sort of viewed this past election result as a wake-up call. And the fact that he's already telling the DOJ to investigate some of these corporations into beef prices being too high, I think that's a really good sign. And we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. All right, next topic. So the last main topic I want to discuss is the tariff issue. Trump's tariffs were argued at the Supreme Court this past week. The challengers to the tariffs are saying that Trump's tariffs were unconstitutional because, one, the Emergency Economic Powers Act does not give the president the ability to levy tariffs because tariff, according to them, is a tax and it's a revenue raising, and only Congress is able to raise revenue. That's basically the argument the challengers have made about the tariffs. And the hearing went, a lot of people ran with the headline that the tariffs were cooked and that the Supreme Court was poised to rule against Trump regarding the tariffs. While it is true when the government was first arguing in front of the justices did have some pretty skeptical questions to them. People kind of jumped the gun because when the challengers came up to argue against the tariffs, the justices also asked them some tough questions as well. So, based off the hearing, I would maybe lean slightly towards SCOTUS invalidating Trump's tariffs, but it's by no means a guarantee. I mean, I've seen some betting odds that say over a 75% chance the tariffs get invalidated by SCOTUS. I don't see that at all. I think it's 50-50, maybe slightly. But I kind of want to discuss why I do believe Trump's tariffs are constitutional. And in fact, I have an article on the website, again, therightwingpopulist.com. And I'm going to read you some of the article explaining why I think the tariffs are constitutional. And this all started because the reason we're at the CODIS is because a district court ruled that the tariffs were unconstitutional. The Trump administration appealed that to SCOTUS, and that's where we are. But let me read you from my article. Every once in a while, you run into a court decision that tries so hard to draw bright constitutional lines that it ends up ignoring 2 centuries of history, practice, and common sense. The recent Leering Resources versus Trump ruling is one of those cases. The district court held that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA, doesn't let the president impose tariffs. Why? Because the IEEPA says the president can regulate importation, and according to the court, regulating importation does not include tariffs, unless Congress uses magic words like tariffs, duty, imports, or tax. This is a mistake, a big one, and it matters not just for this case, but for understanding how Congress and the president have interacted on foreign policy commerce issues for more than 200 years. The entire ruling turns on a false premise that tariffs are only taxes, and therefore Congress must explicitly invoke the taxation clause if it wants the president to impose them. That's simply not how tariffs have ever worked. From the founding era onward, tariffs have served two purposes: raising revenue and regulating foreign commerce. The founders knew this, the early Congress knew this, the Supreme Court has repeatedly affirmed this. So if Congress grants the president the power to regulate importation, it has, by definition, granted the power to use one of the oldest, more traditional tools for regulating importation: tariffs. And I go on to describe the history about it. Now, there is a question of, even if the IEEPA grants the president to regulate imports, just because Congress passed a law doesn't mean that law is constitutional, and you could argue, well, they're still delegating a power to the executive branch that they don't have the privilege to do so because it's a core power of Congress. But I also discussed that in the article, and I'm going to read you that part. Even if the tariffs can regulate commerce, the next question is, can Congress delegate that power to the president under I or EPA? I'll just say EPA. The answer is yes, and the Supreme Court has been clear about why. Foreign affairs are different. Cases like Curtis Wright recognize that Congress can delegate expansive authority to the president when dealing with foreign nations because the president already has independent foreign affairs powers. This is really important. EPA also has real limits. It applies only during declared emergencies. It applies only to foreign-linked property. It excludes entire categories like humanitarian goods, informational materials, etc. This is not a blank check. The statute is narrower than critics admit. Even Gorsuch has already said this about delegating power. One of the big missing pieces in the district court analysis is what Justice Neil Gorsuch has already made clear about delegation, especially in the foreign affairs context. Gorsuch is known as one of the strongest critics of broad agency power, but even he draws an important line. The Constitution treats foreign affairs differently from domestic regulation. In his dissent in Gundy versus the United States, Gorsuch explained that the non-delegation principle is at its strictest when Congress hands domestic policy-making powers to agencies. But when a statute deals with matters already within the president's constitutional authority, including foreign affairs, the delegation is far less constitutionally problematic. He points directly to early cases like cargo of the brig Aurora in 1813, where the court upheld a statute giving the president authority to control foreign imports based on whether other countries met certain conditions. Why? Because the president already had independent Article II responsibility in foreign relations. Congress wasn't giving away its power so much as plugging into a domain where the Constitution already expects executive discretion. Gorsuch's point is simple but crucial. If the delegated power falls within a zone where the president already possesses constitutional authority, like foreign commerce, sanctions, diplomacy, or import restrictions, the non-delegation concern drops way down. And I go on, there's more to the article, but that's sort of the crux of it. So basically the argument is, in EPA, it gives the president the power to regulate foreign commerce. tariffs are a way of regulating foreign commerce. It's not just a tax, it's a way of regulating. And the issue of delegating isn't a problem because the president already has powers in foreign affairs. So they're not so much delegating power, they're just making it clear the president has the ability to do this with tariffs. That's what they're doing. And, I think, now I will say this, Gorsuch seemed more hostile towards the government. He shouldn't be. I mean, this is how I see the vote breaking down. I think there are 3 definite yes votes and 3 definite no votes. I think the yes votes are Kavanaugh, Alito, and Thomas. I think the no votes are the 3 liberal justices, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. And then the other 3 justices, Amy Coney Barrett, Roberts, and Gorsuch, based off the hearing, I'm not sure. I think Barrett probably leans towards no. And I think the other 2, excuse me, Gorsuch and Roberts, I'm not sure. They both asked some tough questions, although I do think Gorsuch maybe leaned a little bit more against the government. He shouldn't, based off what I just read. He's been clear that this is okay to delegate powers if it's in a related field, but the problem is Gorsuch also kind of comes from a pretty strong libertarian-leaning mindset, and libertarians in general are pretty skeptical of not just like a strong executive, let's say, but also just they like sort of a free market, and tariffs are not necessarily a free market policy. So we'll see. It's not 100% clear to me what's going to happen. I do think the vote's going to be close. It's not going to be a 9-0 decision against the tariffs, which I've seen some people say. I think the most likely outcome is slightly a 5-4 decision against the tariffs, but a 5-4 decision in favor of the tariffs is certainly possible. I mean, people are way exaggerating the chances of the tariffs being overturned, but anyway, we'll see what happens. So the last thing I want to talk about is actually a little bit of a personal segment. I think I might, at the end of these weekly wrap-up episodes, I think I will maybe do like a personal segment, maybe give advice or just tell some of my like stories about my dating life or whatever. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I'll leave out some details, but I just want to give some advice about not burning bridges. Very important. I'm still in my 20s, but I've already learned that it's a mistake to burn bridges. And not just professionally, but also just in your social life. I recently had a friend, and we were pretty close. It wasn't like a childhood friend, but I know I met him at a place I was working at the time. We became friends pretty quickly, pretty close friends too. And for about 3 years, and the problem was I started realizing even though we were close and I considered him like a little brother, I started to realize or notice that he was doing things that were annoying me. Like he wouldn't keep his word all the time. He would flake. He would commit to doing something but then not follow through. And I started getting annoyed about it. And I brought it up to him a couple of times, and he would more or less acknowledge it, but then the same shit would keep happening. And, this to some degree, it's like I probably shouldn't have cared as much as I did. And after some reflection, I realized I was probably putting too much emotional weight on the friendship than was necessary or appropriate. That's part of the problem if you're someone like me who doesn't stay in committed romantic relationships for very long. You sort of go in between a lot. It does sort of create you sort of maybe rely on your friends a bit more for like emotional support than what like a buddy should have to do. So in retrospect, I can see I was doing that, but at the time I was just getting more and more annoyed because it's like, dude, like I get it if like a girl is gonna flake on me on a date, but like I don't like you're my buddy, bro. Like I don't expect my buddies to be flaking on me. And I started to grow maybe a little bit resentful. Shouldn't have. Again, I was putting too much emotional weight on the friendship. Shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, it's like you shouldn't flake on your. And he did it multiple times. It wasn't just like once a year. It was multiple times within a few months actually. And so it kind of comes to a head at some point. He again doesn't keep his word. And in fact, he kind of lies to me about something. I'm not going to go into the details in case, you know who I am and you know who this person is. I don't want to give out the name of him or anything, but he doesn't keep his word. He kind of gaslights me and lies to me. And then I just like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this crap. Like, I still have love for him as a brother. I want him to do well. But like, I just can't do this thing where he's like, I'm going to, we call each other like brothers, but then like you don't follow through, bro. Even on little things, at a certain point, it just adds up. So the next day, I text him. I'm just like, man, I need to cut you out of my life, bro, for at least for a while. Like you're not keeping your word, and I've told you, I've asked you not to flake. I've asked you to follow through when you commit your word to something, and you keep not doing that stuff. So I just kind of have to cut you out of my life at least for now. And he was very dismissive. He tried to claim it was about the specific instance that sort of sparked the fallout. It really wasn't. It was about the pattern of behavior. But anyway, so it does not end well. However, like I said, after reflecting, I realized at the end of the day, I still valued the friendship. And that part of the reason, well, I do feel like I had some valid reasons in being frustrated with him. I kind of had to be honest with myself and realize part of the reason you got so angry was because you were putting too much emotional weight on the friendship in a way that, your buddy shouldn't have to deal with. He's your buddy, not your girlfriend, not your romantic partner. He's just a friend. He's just a buddy. And again, I do think I had reason to be frustrated with him, but after reflecting, I was like, man, you overreacted, Chris, and you still have love for him as a friend. And, you're going to miss the friendship, dude. So I reached back out to him once or twice. I just sent like 2 quick texts saying, I'm sorry things escalated. I still consider you a brother. He doesn't get back to me. I'm just like, ah, shit. I really, I really screwed up this time. This isn't good. So I then decided I didn't want to do this because I'm not the biggest fan of apologizing. I sent a very long but honest and heartfelt text explaining, why I reacted the way I did and that I was really sorry and that I do not want to cut him out of my life and I hope he can forgive me. He does get back to me with a receptive response but pretty clearly guarded, basically saying that he appreciated what, what I had to say and that, if I wanted to text him, he'd get back to me at some point and that, that he was sorry for his lack of empathy, whatever that means, but that we would talk soon. I was happy he did that. Then a week later, I texted him just checking in on him. He hasn't gone back to me. It's been like 5 days. So I don't know, that the friendship is looking like might be cooked. And I only say this to tell you is just in life, man, don't burn bridges. I've done this with certain jobs too. I had a job where I sort of quit abruptly because I had a manager who was being rude to me. And she was being rude to me. And I was just like, okay, enough of this shit. And I thought certain things were going to happen in my life where quitting like that wasn't going to really matter. In retrospect, I should not have done that. It would have been better, at least during that time, probably to this day, if I had just kept with that job, at least for a little bit longer. And, like, I can't go back to them and, like, kind of have my old job back. It's like, no, I burnt the bridge. You can't just leave a job abruptly. They're not going to want you back. And so just don't burn bridges. Even in, like, dating, in the dating aspect, don't burn bridges. Because, like, in the heat of the moment, when emotions are high, you will say shit that you don't really mean. But you just feel so mad, at least for me. I get so mad sometimes. It's like I say shit I don't really mean. I don't really believe. So I've just realized in my life I've burned bridges I shouldn't have. I mistreated some people I shouldn't have. And you just cannot let your anger allow you to do something you're going to regret. And I really regret what I did with this close friend of mine. I hope at some point we really do reconcile. And it was just another lesson for me that I really am going to take to heart, that you should not burn bridges. If you're mad at someone, just go quiet, but don't attack them. Don't be dramatic like I was. So, anyway, I just thought I'd put that at the end. Just a little bit of life advice is don't burn bridges. Even if you're so mad, even if you think you're never going to need this person or this company in the future, don't burn the bridge. Okay, just don't do it. Take it from me. I'm still in my 20s, but like I've had enough life experience to know and dealing with not just him, but other friends and relationships with girls and just professionally. Never smart to burn bridges. It's just not a good idea. So leave on good terms. If you're going to leave, make sure it's on good terms, not on bad terms, because once you've calmed down and you've had more time to reflect, you realize, shit, man, I made a mistake. So, if by chance, buddy, and you know who you are, if you're listening to this, just know I'm really sorry. Feel free to contact me anytime, and I apologize again. Anyway, that's it for the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed this newer, longer format. I hope you guys liked maybe my sort of the life advice or personal segment at the end. If you want to give me any more feedback, you can let me know in the YouTube comments. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I'll see you next week.